right, and we're going to put this, we'll do a Facebook Live as well. So let's see, share on the page. All right, and then as soon as we get that, we'll go ahead and start. Don't worry, Deirdre, we're not going to take points off for logging in and raising your hand. All right, almost set, guys. That's just the magic behind the scenes. If it's going to work for us here. All right, well, that's thinking. I can go ahead and give a quick introduction here. So I think, Tom, can you confirm that you could see just like the intro slide, the thank you?
Yeah, I can see that.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm just going to share a little bit of information about Ride Illinois, and then we'll jump into the meat of the presentation here. Let me just get back over to my window. So welcome. My name is Dave Simmons, and I'm the Executive Director of Ride Illinois as of a year and 2 days ago. So I've already hit my first year anniversary, which is hard to believe. Just want to share a few things about Ride Illinois if you're not familiar with us. So we are a statewide nonprofit bike advocacy organization. And as you see the bullet points here, these are the things that we focus on in our daily work. And all of that kind of sums up to the goal of making biking better for you. We are a mighty staff of 3, or more so 2.5. Myself and Gina were full-time staff, and then Ed Barsati, who many of you probably know or have heard of, is now semi-retired. So he's the half that we have on staff, but he's still working with us. We are fortunate to have some corporate members. So of course would encourage you to check them out, or follow them on social media. They're generous organizations that support our mission. And I always like to mention our bike safety quiz. Perhaps you've taken it before, perhaps you haven't, but if you search for bikesafetyquiz.com, it's going to get you to a free online quiz that you can take from different perspectives. And the 4 perspectives are down on the bottom there. As adults, I usually like to point folks towards both the adult bicyclist quiz as well as the motorist and driver's ed quiz because of those 2 different perspectives. So take the quiz. If it's been a while, take it again. And we do have Spanish and PDF versions available as well. And then the shameless plug, ways that you could support Ride Illinois. Aside from our membership program, we do have presence on social media. I mentioned the bike safety quiz. We absolutely encourage you to ride often. And when you ride, we ask that you follow the rules of the road. So you are representing other cyclists in the city or in the state. And then my contact info. So if ever you have a question, a complaint, a suggestion, please reach out. And I believe, last slide here, just some ground rules. So we want this to be, interesting. We want it to be interactive. We want it to be, just kind of mind-blowing, I guess. And I think Tom's going to have some great information to share. So because we're in a webinar format, we ask that you can put your questions in the Q&A or the chat. What I'll do is monitor those panels, and if it's appropriate, if your question or your comment is appropriate to the topic Tom's speaking of, I'll go ahead and politely interrupt. If not, we'll push some questions off to the end. So this is your mental break from what is chaos of 2020. And we'll be sharing this link as well. So if you want to watch it or rewatch it, or if you registered and weren't able to attend live, we'll share that afterwards. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'd like to introduce our special guest tonight, Tom Limon from Biketropolis. Tom, you and I haven't known each other that long, but I know I followed your site and your journeys. Haven't participated in a tour, which, shame on me. But you got a great concept, and I love the fact that you're all over Chicago. and you put together a number of tours, including the one that you're going to focus on tonight.
Yeah, thanks a lot for hosting me. Let me get my screen shared here.
Sure.
And let's see what happened.
All right, I see.
Okay,
Chicago
perfect.
Mansions. Yep.
Okay, well, again, thanks, Dave, for allowing me to present what I've been working on to everybody in the biking community. And thanks to Ride Illinois. I think I'm going to be able to paint a picture without actually taking you on a tour, which is kind of tricky to do with what I have going on here. First, I'll give you some background. You know, I grew up in Westtown Wicker Park in the 80s as a kid. I used to sneak off the block on my BMX bike and explore neighborhoods and get back in time before I was supposed to eat dinner. My parents didn't know I used to do that. I used to just sneak off and come back home. As a young adult, I was a mountain biker. I would go on trips to Utah, Colorado, downhilling, single track. And I did all that in the 90s. And then I kind of took a break from cycling. In 2014, 15, I had a hockey injury and tore some ligaments in my knee and went through physical therapy and everything. And it was never the same. I had a limp. One of my knees was like bigger than the other one. And I thought I was going to have to, it was going to be like that forever. But, saw these bike lanes getting built in Chicago. So I decided to buy a bike and start biking around. And I would go 5 miles and then double it to 10, start exploring Chicago a little more, biking up and down the lakefront. And I found out because of the low impact of cycling, I actually healed my knee back to like what it was normally. I lost power. I couldn't jump. I gained all that back. The muscles are healed, or the ligaments are healed. So then I just started biking all over. And what happened is I started biking farther and farther, exploring other neighborhoods, posting photos on Facebook. And then people would ask me, hey, where were you? Where is that place? I never knew about that. Like places like Pullman or places in South Chicago. So then I decided, well, maybe I should set up a tour or something and take people around. And I really didn't know what I was doing. I just posted this tour I made up with very little planning to Pullman in 2016. I didn't even create an event. I just posted randomly on Facebook. I didn't know who was going to show up. I wasn't even keeping track of that. Lo and behold, like 25 people showed up. And I was like, oh, what did I get myself into? I had a few friends I know come help. I'm not sure if they're on right now, but they helped me with it. And everybody liked it. It was a really good adventure. And, at the end of the ride, they're like, well, when's the next one? I'm like, well, I don't have a next one set up. I don't have one planned. So then I went back and figured out how to create some other tours. And that's kind of how I got started in this. So what I used to do is buy these books, these Arcadia publishing books, because they have all, there's probably 100 of them for Chicago, different neighborhoods, different topics. I buy the books and go bike around to find points of interest, and then I would turn it into a tour. Sometimes I would get some courage and contact the author and ask if he wanted to meet us and talk to us about his book, and he would. And that I've been doing that for like 5 years. But then I came up with this idea that I wanted to try to come up with a way to do self-guided tours, because I had a lot of problems with bad weather, having to reschedule rides. One year every ride had to be rescheduled, some rides twice and 3 times. It really cuts into your personal life. And then it's a real headache. It's really hard. It's easier to set up a tour and follow through with it. It's harder to reschedule a tour. It's more work to reschedule a tour than it was to originally create it, which might be kind of hard to understand why. But when you have historians and authors meeting you, you kind of got to work with their schedule too. And then half the people that signed up can't make that tour, so you have to refund those people and then find some people to take up those slots. It just becomes a lot of work. And it's like, okay, what did I get myself into? And then you have the thing where the tours started getting too popular. I've had up to 100 people on a tour before. 80, 50, you know, I try to tweak it back to 35 seemed to be a good number for a while. But then even with 35, it's tricky. You've got some people who don't want large crowds, and then you have some people that do want these large crowds. They think, you know, it's exciting and fun. You have some people that want to go fast, you know, because
it's a tour, right?
yeah, and then I have people that we don't leave anyone behind, right? So we're going to go as fast as the slowest person is what I've been telling people. So that's another dynamic that's hard to deal with. And then you have personalities and things like that. So I've been kicking around this idea for a long time. If I could do a self-guided version of a tour, it might solve a lot of my problems. You can go when you want, you can go with your friend, you can go by yourself. I've had this tour right here alone. I've had a couple of groups do the whole tour with a group on their own. I gave them some guidance, but there's groups of 5 and 10 that have done it on their own with their whole group. They've all signed up. This isn't designed for a group per se to do like a group tour, but it can be with the right information. You can do it with a group, but really it's designed for your own personal experience by yourself or with a couple of people. That seems to really be where this really works. So, you know, I'm happy that ARCADIA Publishing likes this idea and they're working with me to make this more of a reality. And I work directly with Ride with GPS. So I have license agreements between both companies that are going to make this probably go on for the future because they have a lot of books. Okay, I can't even all the tours of the books they have. And this format, Images of America, the format really works. It's a small book. You could bring it with you. It's an easy read. It really works for what I've been trying to do. So we'll dive into it if that's okay.
Yeah.
All right, so a little background. My day job, I work for IBM. I manage a help desk, a specialized help desk. I maintain a first aid CPR certification. I have a bike mechanic certification, an LCI instructor, and I'm also certified to do adventure cycling tours.
I was going to ask you about your day job because I know you spend a lot of time on Biketropolis. So
yeah, my day job's actually not that hard, so I'm pretty lucky. So what is a Biketropolis self-guided cycling tour? Well, one, you get a physical book, a downloadable tour that'll work on your iPhone or Android, a ride guide, which is really important, and there's a Biketropolis sticker. The physical book you don't have to bring with you on the ride. It's a nice to have on the ride, but the book is included for licensing reasons because the content in the book actually lives in the tour. It's built in Ride GPS. So I will get into a little bit about that soon. The ride guide's really important because every ride's going to be different. There's different things that need to be called out, and it's real important to read that as well. And we'll get into what that is. So what happens first you sign up, and next you fill out a waiver form. After you fill out a waiver form, you receive an email with your personal access code. It can only be used once. When you access the code and load it in your phone, it's good for 30 days. I figure if you wanted to do the ride in segments, maybe not do the whole ride, or something came up and you had to reschedule your own ride, 30 days seems to be okay. I might play with that and change that around. And there's flexibility if somebody called me and said, hey, you know, it's a day late or too late, I can give you another code. That's not a big deal. It's really to keep it from blatantly be copied and sent around, the internet. So there's copy protection built in this. So what happens is on the left-hand side, this is what the email link looks like. On the right-hand side, it's a small screenshot of the app. You basically can either take your phone and hold it up to the QR code with your camera open. It'll download the app, load the tour. If you already have the app, it'll load the tour. If you don't want to use your camera, you can just click on Open Shortcut and type in, I believe it's a 6-digit characters. You type in, it's easy to type in. So you have a couple options there. So when you load the tour, there's a description here on the left. And if you scroll down a little bit more, there's a button that says route, and you click on it. And then what you see in the center screen is the actual route. It's a bird's eye view. You could zoom in on it. You can pan around. And on the right hand side, I threw in, how you could break this tour up into 3 or 4 small tours. If 30 miles, this is a 30-mile tour, not everyone could do a 30-mile tour. Some people could do more, but you could break it up into 3 or 4 tours if you wanted. And you can start these tours anywhere you want. You could start, actually today somebody emailed me and they were pretty proud of it. They did the tour backwards. Okay, your tour's awesome, but I decided to do it backwards.
Nice.
And he said it worked out great. Now, if there's one-way streets, you're going to have to figure out how to work around those, but he must have been pretty savvy to do that because there are one-way streets. So there's a legend on the right-hand side of the different icons you see. So I threw all the bike shops around the route just in case you needed some help with some mechanical issues or you wanted to go stop in at a bike shop. That's every bike shop on the route or within a couple blocks of the route. The monument icon is not a point of interest per se that I route you to. It's basically Chicago landmarks plaque or monument sign. They're like Easter eggs. Some of them, they're really easy to find. They're actually on the building you're going to look at. Some of them are on the ground. Some of them are hiding. But, if you want to learn more about the area or the building you're looking at, you can click on that and there's a link to take you to their website. Now the camera icon, that's where the content of the book is in, and we'll get to that in a second. But when you click on that, it shows you a photo of the point of interest and content from the book.
And I should mention, Tom was kind enough to send a copy to me, and I intend to do the tour. I just have not yet.
Yeah, you live out in the suburbs, right? So you got to plan it a little bit
right
more now. All right, so here's a good example. You click, you're in the app, you get to a point of interest, and you click on it, and this is the McCormick Mansion. It's on Ontario and Erie, basically, or Ontario and Rush, I'm sorry. So what you're reading in the middle here is actually content from the book. And it also will refer to what page it came from because some of it has a little more information. I don't want to do sensory overload and have you standing there reading a book, but it's enough information to give you an idea of what you're looking at. Now, the author that wrote this book, John Graff, he has a lot of historical photos. So he gave me some like then and now photos. So if you click on view more info, what you see on the right-hand side pops up. So if you look at these 2 photos, you'd never know the photo on the right was a mansion at one point. They chopped off 2 floors and then put that other facade on it, and now it's a restaurant. But he's got tons of these photos, so we embedded some of these photos inside, and they're in the book as well. The book is nice if you flip through it before the ride. Maybe you bring it with you on the ride and you look at it at lunchtime, or you look at it later. It really doesn't matter when you look at the book. It's really your preference. If you're riding a road bike and you don't have a bag, you're probably not going to bring the book with you, but you don't really need to. All right, so this particular tour, I had to get creative. Let me back up a second. The tour start location is not really a location. I had to call it something else. It's a start area. Because if you look in the middle here, there's 4 mansions right by each other. Originally I had the route starting at the first one and then continuing past the 4 and then going on its way. But you had to get on your bike, get off your bike, get on your bike within half a block. I thought that doesn't make any sense. If you're clipped in, it's not a good idea. So this first part of the tour is walking. It's a walking part. There's no sense to get on your bike. These mansions are within 1 block. So that's when I came up with the idea to come up with what I call walking zones. Now, this is a 30-mile ride. There's roughly 9 of them, okay? And the reason why I put these walking zones in is because, you know, for safety and also to get a good point of view, bird's eye view of the mansion, because some of these streets have tree lines on them. And if you're on the street, you can't even see the mansions. So, you know, a real good one would be like second one from the left in the middle there. It says LaSalle Street. You know, you're not going to bike on LaSalle Street and stop in the middle of LaSalle to look at a mansion that's blocked by trees. This just doesn't make any sense, right? And I didn't want to cut any mansions out of the book either and say, well, I'm just going to skip that one. And actually there's, for the north side, there's, I think, 53 mansions. I went with 50 of them. 3 of them were just too far out north, 7,000 block of Ravenswood, and West Irving. And it was just a little too far to go see three of them. So I did cut 3 out, but I left 50. So that's what these are, walking zones. You know, you go to the middle section on the top. Well, that's Inner Lakeshore Drive. Okay. You know, you could possibly get away with biking on there, but I don't know the conditions when you're actually going on the ride. So I'm calling it's a walking zone. And that one on the top, number 2, Inner Lakeshore Drive, that one's actually pretty low stress. But you know, you go to the one below it, number 5, Inner Lakeshore Drive, there's cars flying around there. And again, you want to see those 3 mansions there. You're not going to stop in the middle of the street, you know. That's where my LCI training came in. I took a lot of the principles and applied it to the ride for safety. And that's why we have these walking zones. Now, every tour is not going to have them. Some might have some don't. But this tour really needed these walking zones. Toward the right in the middle where it says Rush Street Outside Dining, that's an interesting walking zone because they opened up all this outdoor seating for COVID. Well, you're not going to bike through where people are sitting. That's going to be rude and dangerous. So I'm calling out, you need to walk through there. You could walk through there. You won't really get in the way, but you don't want to be biking through that area. And some of you that went on the tour probably know what area I'm talking about. It's just a short little area. You should walk your bike. So if I didn't have these walking zones, look how many mansions I would have had to remove from the tour. You know, you're talking about a half dozen probably. So I had to get creative.
Let me ask, Tom, what's the definition of a mansion?
Oh, well, that's interesting because, yeah, if you look at the book, they're not all mansions, right? Some of them are mansions, but then they renamed them as homes.
Okay.
You know, I'm not the one to answer that question per se, but this book covers a wide range of historically important homes,
Okay.
row homes, single family homes, and then what you would consider a mansion. Okay.
I just think that, you know, big house, but I'm sure there's probably some more.
Yeah, it's there are some fine lines and a lot of them that were mansions are called homes, and now some of them are condos. So some of the mansions have been converted to condos, you know, just because they're expensive upkeep. They decided to break it up into smaller living quarters. But I should look into like what the actual definition is.
Well, and you didn't decide. You used the publisher.
I went with the book, yeah. So somebody was really, you know, looking closely, like that's not a mansion. Yeah, there's a few of them that really aren't mansions.
Okay.
So what I can do is I might let's see here. I'll start this for a second. Here's a 3D flyover. So that's obviously a mansion, right? But this is the start location. This is where you'd be walking right now, okay? You actually leave from this location and start biking, okay? Now I won't play the whole thing, but I want to get it going a little bit. So there's a reason I'll show you in the end here. You know, I kind of wind you in and out of the Gold Coast. I could have went straight up and down the streets. By the way, that's a wooden alley. That's pretty cool. I could have like had you go all the way up a street, all the way back down a street, all the way up a street. But for 2 reasons, I didn't do that. One is you would have missed the other mansions you're just going to inherently see on this cross streets. I also wanted to slow the rider down. You know, if I had you going straight down a long path, you're probably going to pick up some speed and pass up your location. So that's why it kind of looks like a labyrinth that I have you going through in this area right here, okay? But then after you get out of the Gold Coast, the mansions are pretty well spread apart, you can see. Now I'm going to stop it there.
And Tracy was kind enough to look up a definition. Very
Or now.
I'm
a
sorry.
large imposing residence.
Yeah.
Or
So that's kind of vague, but yeah, because it makes sense. But I thought there might be more of a description, but that's good. But so if you get the idea, I wanted to slow the rider down because it makes no sense to have you hauling down Inner Lakeshore Drive 8 blocks. You're gonna bike past your location. So, and then you're never gonna see the other mansions. So that's the thing. There's 50 points of interest, but you're gonna see a couple hundred mansions on this ride. And that's, you know, there's some mansions that'll blow your mind that aren't in the book that you're gonna pass by and someone will say, well, why isn't that a point of interest? Well, I had to get this done, right? So going off the book kept me in line, or I would have went on forever and I would have never got this done. So the book kind of kept me on track because I didn't really veer off the book. The book has 4 chapters: North Side, South Side, and West Side. And the 4th chapter is interesting. It's called Lost Mansions. We do go to one site that has a lost mansion, and that'd be the Palmer Castle. It's not there anymore. It's on Lakeshore Drive, but there's a Chicago tribute sign there that you could read about the mansion and see photos of it. Okay, so the application has audio turn-by-turn directions. You know, turn right, turn left, continue straight.
That's all through Ride with GPS.
All through Ride with GPS. Now, by default, it'll just create all those for you. And that might be fine for a training ride where you're not stopping to look at anything. So if you ask me what part was the hardest and the most work, it was getting those audio cues right. Because if you're trying to tell somebody to make a left, and by the way, right when you make that left, there's 2 points of interest, that's a little hard to do. But I did come up with some creative ways to do it.
Yes. Do you mean to be sharing anything right now?
No, I'm about to right now.
Okay.
So what I'm going to play right now is an example of an audio cue that calls out the mansion you're about to bike to. Okay.
You are now approaching the John Howland Thompson Mansion on your right.
So that is an example, and that's for every mansion you're going to go to. It calls it out. Now.
You have arrived at the residence of the Roman Catholic Archbishop of Chicago at 1555 North State Parkway. This red brick Queen Anne mansion features 19 chimneys. Then turn right.
Okay, so some of them have a real good description, and I also typically put the address in because some of them might be hard to find. So I have the address in there in case you're scanning the street, trying to figure out where you are. And then there is a subtle descriptive architectural feature of the building you're going to see. Now, there's more if you click on the camera icon. That's where like the bulk of the description is of the site you're going to see. Now, throughout the ride, so that's all from the book. Now, I threw in extra stuff that I came up with. I call them architectural facts. So I wanted something to fill in the gaps. If you're riding down a block and there's nothing to see for a while, these architectural facts will pop up and teach you about architecture. And it might refer to the place you left or where you're going. It does tie into something. So I'm going to play an architectural fact about the series of buildings that you'll see on the first section of Inner Lakeshore Drive. Just in case you can't hear it that clear, it's actually talking about these large brick type facade here, okay? It actually has a term.
Continue walking around the corner to the right. Be mindful of residents walking through the neighborhood, then take notice. Architecture fact: notice the rustication on the facades of the next series of mansions. It's a type of decorative masonry achieved by cutting back the edges of stones to a plane surface while leaving the face's central portion either rough or projecting. Markedly, rustication provides a rich and bold surface for exterior masonry walls.
So that's the large, you probably see this all the time now, but no one knows what it's called. Now, one challenge with the app is that it can't pronounce all the words right. So I found through the whole tour, there's probably 6 words it can't pronounce properly. And I tried playing around and changing the phonetics, and I could never get it. So it's supposed to say facade, but it said facade.
Right.
But it's very subtle. It doesn't happen that often. I think people will understand. There's also safety stuff that pops up. So like it said, watch out for residents. I've done this route so many times. That's a walking zone. When you come around that corner, lo and behold, there's somebody walking a dog, right? So I had to be careful to make sure that, people realize that you're a guest of the neighborhood. Right before you make this turn, there's a driveway for the garage, and that gets called out to stop and to be cautious that, they might not see you coming out. There are mirrors, and lo and behold, I got a video. I'm not going to play it right now, but the one I recorded going through there, a car went right out of there right in front of me. So there's a lot of, I wouldn't say there's a lot, I don't want to overwhelm people, but there is also sprinkled across the tour safety tips while you're biking. So there's architectural facts, there's safety tips. I threw in some humor. There's some humor throughout the ride. So I'll go to the next.
Well, as a fellow LCI, I appreciate that that helped kind of form the approach you took, right?
Yeah, after you start at the start location and get through that little mini walking tour, there's a section of biking where I do kind of set you up for success and remind you about some of the safety things we might forget about, and also some of the tips to make sure your tour is successful. And here's a good example here, but I just want to call this out. So, actually, this tour starts downtown and goes through the Gold Coast, right? I've done this tour many times in a day, many days of the week during my test phases and things like that. And really, you want to start this tour at 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning, no later than 10. If you do this tour later than 10, you are going to be faced with a lot of traffic. It's going to take you longer to get through the Gold Coast. You probably will get a little frustrated. So really you want to, and I'm telling you, if you started at 8 in the morning, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful to go through the Gold Coast before everyone starts coming out, and you don't have to deal with cars.
So this is weekday, weekend, doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. The other interesting thing is, and it's just might be luck, but if you started early in the morning, I found the sun is at the right location where when you take photos of the mansions on Lakeshore Drive, you're going to get really stunning photos. And as you do the tour and you come around and you go north and then you go west and you come back south and you start getting to Wicker Park, if you took your time and you stopped for lunch, the sun sets up again to take really good photos in Wicker Park with the direction those mansions are located. So the other thing too is, I won't click on the link, but when you get your ride guide, a lot of this stuff is in there. Probably the biggest challenge will be battery life for most people. And Ride with GPS has a few tips. When you do this ride, you see that center photo where it shows the map up? You don't want the map up during the whole ride. You don't need it up during the whole ride. The audio cues are so accurate that you just need to listen. If you get lost or want to pull over and look, then that makes sense. But the biggest drain on your phone will be your screen on for a 30-mile ride. That's what's going to kill your battery. So they have a setting called handlebar mode that shuts the screen off while you're biking, but when an alert comes up, it not only gives you the audio cue, there's a visual that says turn right, turn left, go straight. So that's the biggest tip to save your battery, plus doing things like closing out an email, because email is also the biggest hog. When you're biking around and your email client is trying to download email, that's the second biggest thing that'll kill your battery. You don't realize it, but it's killing your battery. And then there's a few other tips in there. Ironically, if you turn on battery saving mode, it will drain your battery with an app like this. Because of what happens with GPS and how GPS has to fire back up and turn back on and get access. So the actual recommendation is to not turn on battery saving mode, which might sound kind of strange, but it's true. So if you have the screen off most of the time and you close out of all your programs that you don't need running and you don't turn on battery saving mode, it actually will last longer than you thought.
Nice.
Now, you should probably have,
So let me a couple questions, and
yes.
they're I think timely, but I'll assume you're going to get to Rich's question about how to get the guide.
Yeah.
To wrap up. So Rich, sit tight on that one, and then let's see. Alexis is asking. Well, she appreciates the info, and she is asking about restaurants along the way, restrooms and safe places to lock a bike.
Yeah, that's not a problem on this tour. I mean, you're going through some pretty affluent neighborhoods, plenty of restaurants. You know, I thought about calling out certain restaurants, but at the end of the day, it didn't make sense because there are so many.
Sure.
You know, back in May, that might have been an issue when a lot of places were closed, but it's not like that right now.
Great,
you know, I'll tell you, a lot of people on this ride have done the same thing, ironically, is when you start off in the Gold Coast and you bike up north, when you get to Edgewater, which I'll pull up the map shortly and we'll look at that. There's a cafe on the lake and it's really nice and they're really doing social distancing very well. And you get to look at, you know, when you go to this cafe on the lake, I think it's called Waterfront Cafe. It's on Granville. It's kind of hidden if you don't know about it. It's behind the mansions you're going to look at over there. That seems to be the place everyone's been going to. Now, when you go back across west on Granville and you get on the other side of Edgewater, near Edgewater Historical Society, you know, I was thinking the pie shop is really good. A lot of my rides would go to the pie shop on Ashland. But that's a little long. You're probably already going to want to stop for lunch. So that's why I thought I'd just let people pick. And then when I found out people were going to do the ride backwards or start at a different location, then it's like, well, I think everyone's going to be fine.
Yeah.
So, you know, following the battery tips, having a handlebar mount helps, an external battery pack. And then if you want to go even further, and this is something you think you're going to do when I release more of these in the spring, a little speaker would help that you see on the left photo on my handlebar. You know, they're like, that one's $30. I've been testing it. I'm pretty happy with it. You could put that speaker on your handlebar. It comes in a mount, or it has a clip you can hang it on your backpack or something. And it's waterproof. So that's if you think you're going to do more of these like that, it might make sense. But at a minimum, you probably need the handlebar mount, bring your charger with you, and possibly a battery if you don't have one.
Good tips.
Okay, so then here's where I call a lot of the prep work I did. So another thing I noticed is there was a lot of potholes. And I'm like, okay, I started routing us around the potholes, but then it started really hurting the experience of the tour and the approach you take when you bike up to a mansion. I kind of got frustrated. I'm like, well, let me just you know, there's an app you can download called Shy 311 and you could report the potholes. It only takes 30 seconds to do it. I don't know if anyone's using this app, but I think everyone should start using it. I used it years ago. I had a Graceland Cemetery tour and they had a pothole right at the entrance. It was huge. And I asked them, how long was it? They're like, oh, that's been there forever.
jeez.
And I called it in and they fixed it right before the tour I had. I was thinking, wow, I can't have everyone biking right into the entrance with this giant pothole. And if you're familiar with Graceland's that's because it's a bus rest stop right in front of there. And the weight of the buses keep damaging that strip of Clark Street. And so then I remembered how well that worked. And I'm like, well, I'm going to start marking these potholes first in case they don't fix them, and then start calling them in. Well, if you look to the top right-hand corner, and you'll obviously see this on the ride. There was a pothole there, and I first marked it, and then I reported it, and then on the right-hand top corner, you can see where they fixed it. So this app opens up tickets, and you get to watch the progress, right? So you get alerted when they've gone out and checked it, and then you get alerted when they fix it. I'm still waiting for this Damon to get fixed. People that bike on Damon south of Foster, they know what I'm talking about. It's really bad there, but hopefully that gets fixed soon. And it's in a bike lane, which is kind of frustrating. Now toward the right, there's that base for a sign. I was gonna call that in, but if you look back in the picture, there's a senior home across the street. And as I spray painted it, I saw these seniors walking over, kind of struggling to get around it. I'm like, well, this is not good. And that thing's been there forever. This is by my house. This is in Lincoln Park. I've seen that there since March. And I looked closer at it because I thought it was a light pole, and it's not, and there's no hole in the ground. There's no electrical wiring. So I was like, forget this. I'll just go back home and get my socket set, and I took it out myself. Because I actually had the tour routing. That's part of like a bike path along Lincoln Park. And you can't have people biking past that. That's not going to happen. It turns out the reason why I had people biking through there is they were regrading the street. And they actually ended up fixing that already. So we don't have to bike through there. But the good news is that's out of the way anyway. So yeah, I'm waiting for a couple more potholes to get repaired. But it's not the end of the world. A lot of them got fixed. And if they're not fixed, I marked them.
Nice. That's very kind of you.
So that's the end of my part, unless anybody had questions. I mean, back to the ride guide. So the ride guide, so here's the process. You sign up. This tour is right on the main webpage at biketropolis.com. And you pick how you want to receive your book. I can ship it to you, or you could do curbside pickup in Lincoln Park at Cycle Smitty. There are some days I'm at the start location just to get some people squared away with the technology. And there's an option, depending on what's going on, that I can just bring it there if you're gonna, like this weekend, I'm gonna be at the start location Saturday and Sunday between 7:30 and 10. I have a lot of people coming that want me to just help them get going and get a ride with GPS going, because this is new. This is kind of new for everyone. I don't expect everyone to just be able to jump out same day, get out there, load it up, and get this figured out. But I think once you do it once, you're going to realize that it's really nice. It's not that bad. So you figure out how you want to receive the book. You don't need the book to do the tour per se. So it's not like you need to wait for the book to go on the tour. A waiver file goes out. Once you fill out the waiver file, then you get an email that has the ride guide in it, that has all the information to set you up for success on the ride, and it's tailored for this ride. And then you get your access code to download the tour. Now, by the way, when I sent out the waiver file, I also sent out the bike quiz and some resources from the League of American Bicyclists website to get you familiar if you want a refresher on biking in the city. Those get sent out as well. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I put all these links. I mean, I'm on everything if somebody wanted to follow me or something on any of these different social media posts. But yeah, we can open it up for questions.
Yeah, we've got actually 3 of them just popped up. I'll read them off just in case you don't have the panel open. Rich asked, is the ride guide for this tour just the walking areas?
No, the ride guide actually talks about the battery and how to extend your battery life. You know what? Let me pull it up. I'll pull the ride guide up. Give me a second. I had it here. This is the ride guide. Now, the ride guide, I send it ahead of time in a PDF. You can access it on the tour, but it's a little hard to read all this on a tour, okay? So this is kind of an overview of what this ride guide is. We kind of talked about a lot of this. The preferred phone settings, and then I go into these walking zones, right? Now, they actually, when you're biking, the audio cue also tells you you're approaching a walking zone and that you should dismount and walk your bike. So you get an audio cue too. But I think it's good to kind of get an idea to know. Like this number 7 is interesting. You know, depending on what's going on during the day, Fullerton Avenue gets backed up pretty bad right there because everyone's trying to get on Lakeshore Drive and cars get really impatient. And it might look easy, like, wow, why don't we just bike across the street and get on the trail? It's actually trickier than you think. So I got you walking on the sidewalk and crossing over, and then you go back on the ride. You know, if you get there and you think you can do it, I can't stop you. And, you know, maybe you are there when there's like no traffic, but chances are that's a tricky intersection to cross.
So,
Rich, go ahead.
So Rich followed up. He said, he said he had a different one, but his girlfriend just found it. So sorry, continue.
And yeah, you know, early on this ride, there were some sections I could have routed you on the lakefront, but then that didn't make any sense either. It kind of got you into a little bit of a mess, so I brought you back out. By the way, the top right hand, Thorndale Avenue in Sheridan. Oh wait, let me go back. That's not the one I want to look at. It's there. Where's it at? Here we go. Okay, this one we need to talk about. Out of all the walking zones, this is probably the most important one. This is Sheridan Avenue where the curve is. If anyone's biked over there, you know you don't bike on Sheridan Avenue, because if you're biking around that curve and a car's behind you, it's not going to see you in time. So this is all walking zone. And see where it says Burger Park? That's where that waterfront lake cafe is. That's a good place to get lunch. So, you know, there's 2 mansions over here, you know, where that monument icon is, that's another mansion, but it's not in the book, but there is a plaque there. So that's a bonus one. And then you got the one way north. And then I have you biking around back and then circling back around and then walking on the sidewalk one more time to catch the last one before you leave Edgewater. So there's safety tips, and these are some of the ones that are called out about communicating your actions. You know, if you're turning right or left or changing a lane, you know, bike predictably.
Not wearing earbuds.
Yeah, not where, I mean, you know, if it's not windy out, you can hear everything on your phone. The problem is wind, right? So that you got to take in consideration when you plan your trip. If you know it's going to be really windy and you can bike in the wind, some people don't like biking in the wind. Remember, you're going to have a hard time hearing things unless you have a speaker. But you don't want earbuds because you need to hear your surrounding. I go over the legend, which we went over.
Yeah, there are more questions if you want to take some more questions.
Yeah, let's go. What are they?
All right, so how long can they wait to do this ride? Maybe that's.
Oh, you can. There's no time limit on when you need to do it. But if you start the navigation, you have 30 days. If you tell me, oh, I accidentally started it, don't worry, I'll send you another code. It's not to like penalize you or anything. So that's fine. But you know, because some people might accidentally start it because they want to look at it and play around with it. But you don't need to start the navigation to look at the route. When you get that email with your code and you go to the website, you can move around online on your web browser.
So just resist starting navigation and you're good.
Yeah, but if you accidentally started it and you tell me the code expired, I can send you another one. That's not an issue.
Let's see. Carolyn asks if parking is an issue at the starting point.
There are several parking garages. There's one on Rush in Ontario, so that's right at the start location. I think people have been using Spot Hero. Now,
Okay.
I happen to know where there's free parking in the city. There's very little left, but if you wanted to go to the West Loop and park, let's say May and Fulton, around that area, you can find free parking still, but it's not going to last. They're about to put paid parking in there sometime at the end of the year. It's one of the last places that they haven't touched. And, you know, May and Fulton is a 10-minute bike ride to the start location. So if you want some free parking, there is free parking around that area. But there's plenty of parking garages near the start area.
All right, Rich wants to know what time people are starting tomorrow.
It varies. I mean, it depends because everyone's doing this on their own. But,
Yeah.
you know, I say start at 8, 9, or 10, or anywhere in between. And I'll be there from 7:30 to 10 to help get you set up if you have issues with loading the route or have questions then. So
Okay.
I
If
say
anybody else is going tomorrow, maybe just pop that into the chat. I don't know if Rich is expecting.
you might bump into someone because you know, it's not like my normal tour where you're going to see, you know, 35 people biking together. That's not what this is for. We got to worry about social distancing. And now I have gone on the route to check on some things, and I have seen people, I know they're doing the route because I hear the audio on the phone. I live by one of the sections. One of the sections goes past where I live, and I've seen somebody on the ride because I heard the audio walking through the neighborhood.
Nice.
But you got to factor, you know, I mean, I'll tell you right now, close to 100 people have signed up. So
Great.
in the last 3 weeks, some people might wait till next year to go. Who knows? You know, things keep changing right now. I mean, you know, so it really depends on people's schedule, the weather. Last weekend wasn't that great, the weather, but this weekend's supposed to be nice. So, you know, oh, by the way, somebody signed up for this tour. This is how safe the route is. This is how I was reassured how safe it was. Somebody signed up for the ride and then messaged me and said, hey, I signed up for your ride, but I'm not going to bike it. I'm going to run it like a marathon because I'm training for a marathon. I'm doing marathon. And I thought, oh my God, what are they doing? Is that going to work? And I had to think about it for a second. I'm like, no, it's going to work. It'll totally work.
Yeah.
This person did it. They ran it like a marathon.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, we got a question from Alexis that you joined a few minutes late. Says, can I bring along a partner or youth for this ride? Can people lead small groups, or is there a size limit that is best for the tour?
Yeah, that's a good question. So again, you know, I've actually done some testing with other groups. You know, some people were used to me leading tours and they're like, hey, we're going with a few people. You want to come with us? I'm like, well, that's not the point. I'm not supposed to be going with you guys. I can't be going on everyone's tour, right? But I thought, I'm going to go. And they think I'm going to lead it, but I'm not. I'm going to like turn the table on them and show them how easy it is. So I've done it with 5 people, 10 people. 5 people seems to work really well. You start getting to 10, the tour will start slowing down, you know. Now, hopefully everyone who goes on the tour signs up and buys the tour. But, you know, if you brought somebody, it's not the end of the world. Next year, I'm going to work out a way where, you know, if you're going to go with like your significant other, you don't need 2 books. You can just add on another rider. Because I'll tell you why. If you've never led a tour and if you're not a docent, you'll have a hard time doing it if you're the only one with the route loaded on your phone. Because now all the pressure's on you. You have to lead the tour, do the reading from every camera icon. That's a lot of pressure, okay? So what I've been telling people, and there's a group going out like tomorrow or Sunday, I can't remember, they're going with like 5 people and they're gonna divvy up the tasks. Somebody who's familiar with leading is gonna focus on leading and the route. 2 other people are gonna take turns being the docent. So I kind of made the docent job really easy for you because all you have to do is click on the icon and read. So teamwork would work, but they have to sign up and get the content, or you won't be able to do it if one person only has the content.
Good point.
Hopefully that answers the question.
We are going to do the raffle. But before we do, oh, yep, Alexa said yes, it answered the question. Thank you. So why don't we do the raffle? And while we do that, if folks have any other questions, we could take a couple more. I'm gonna the 25 who stuck it out here. We're gonna give the tour to someone who is live now, or is still on. So don't drop off if you're still there. Okay, so I took the list of folks who signed up, and again did that random function, assorted it. So Tom, give me a number between 1 and 45, please.
About 15.
15, and I'm going to make sure that this person is on here. No, he is not. All right, pick another one.
18.
18. Let me just again confirm that that person's on here. Yes, so Michael Dorn.
Oh, I know Michael. Michael, you live in Kansas City, don't you?
In Kansas City. Oh, wow. So
Yeah, he's driven up from Kansas to go on the History of Cycling in Chicago tour.
wow. Okay. Well, congratulations, Michael. Yeah, there he is. It said yes. Okay. So I will, Tom, if you need his contact info, or I'll just send it just so you have
I
it.
had to make sure. I'm pretty sure it's him.
Okay.
It's pretty unique. But.
Awesome. All right. Let's see, any other questions? I don't see any coming in the chat.
Yeah, and again, give me feedback. I did this. I'll tell you right now, I lost track of how much time I spent on this tour because there's a lot of things I had to come up with that I can bring over to the next tour. And if you have any good ideas or feedback, let me know. I didn't think of everything, but the plan is I'm going to be working on 5 more of them over the winter, and they'll be released in March. I happen to bike in the winter, so it's not a big stretch for me to test routes in the winter. I might just have to test them once more and call in the potholes in March. But I'm picking 5 other books, and they're going to be very unique from each other. And by the way, I'm going to create a South Side version of this tour, and anybody that signs up is going to get that for free.
Wow.
And, the problem is it would have been a stretch for me to try to encompass the South Side. And trust me, there's a lot of great mansions on the South Side, but that would have been a huge task for me to go out and learn how to do this all the way to the South Side. So I had to start on the North Side, but I didn't forget about the South Side. Most of my tours go on the South Side, by the way. But it's going to be really easy for me to go back out now and do the South Side. So, all the people that signed up, I don't know if I'll have it ready before the end of the season here because it's kind of winding up. But you will receive it and you can go on it in the spring.
Nice. Hey, so Mimi has a question here. She said, every time I launch the app, I get a notice that there is an update. I click to download. So this is kind of a technical thing. Click to download it and then get a weird code. It's like a number.
Hey, email me directly and we'll look at that. That's a good thing to bring up though. If you've been getting updates for the experience, it's called a Biketropolis experience. That's me adding more content in the tour over time. At one point I added in all those monuments. So you got a big update to get all the Chicago landmark plaques. Nice. If I found some little thing I didn't like, I tweaked it. So that's what those updates are for. If you're talking, now if you have an update for the app, that's different, but email me and I'll help you with that and figure out what's going on there.
Yep, she said she would. Awesome. Well, Tom, thank you very much. I am excited, and I hope to get the tour in yet this fall.
Oh yeah, sure. I like your feedback on it.
Yeah, and thanks everybody for joining. For whatever reason, wasn't connecting with Facebook Live, but we can always post the recording there, and we'll post it on the Ride Along website as well. I will send you Michael's his email address or his contact info just to make sure that you have that. And then, as everyone can see, there's lots of ways to get in touch with you. And it sounds like you definitely want feedback on the tour. So yeah. So thanks very much.
Okay,
To you,
thanks,
Tom, and
Bob.
everybody who joined. Enjoy the weekend. Looks like it's going to be perhaps the last warm weekend of the year. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.